controversial cover. So, while it is ethically, morally wrong and unfair and unjust to characterize black men in general as sexual predators, we can't deny that there are rapists and sexual predators among African Americans, just like there are sexual predators who are white men, who are Latino men, who are Asian men, who are Arab men. We have to deal with this. We have to deal with the truth. I believe the reason that CeeLo Green got off as light as he did, even though he tweeted that if a woman doesn't, what was it? If she doesn't,
if she's unconscious, she can't.
Yeah.
Then it's not rape.
Then it's not
if she
rape.
doesn't remember, if she's unconscious and she doesn't remember, then it's not rape. Obviously referring to himself having drugged a woman and raped her. And then there's Bill Cosby, Lord. And that could be a whole 5-hour conversation in and of itself, so I won't dwell on it, but I do want to just say, I believe it's, again, because of the values of this society, not necessarily unique to African Americans, but because of his celebrity status and because of his great wealth. There were so many people that were complicit, that facilitated, that helped him have access to women's bodies, and he had this entitlement. And I just hope that as a community, as a nation, but also as a community, for us, when we know that black men are under siege in so many ways, I hope that African Americans are coming to the point that we're ready, willing, and able to hold rapists accountable, no matter how popular or talented or rich they are. So I want to move on now, let's see, to just briefly talk about, there are, I'm going to talk about healing, but also healing individually for survivors, but we do want to talk a bit about healing community in terms of ending sexual assault. And so in I Will Survive, I do give a couple of examples of some social change work that African Americans did. In particular, there was, in the aftermath of the Mike Tyson case in St. Louis, he was in St. Louis when he raped the victim that we know about, that did press charges. A group of women started by pooling their money to make a statement, buy a page in the New York Times, a black feminist statement about sexual assault and Mike Tyson. And then from there, it kind of organically led to having these discussions, like almost parties, where it's ironic to say the word party, but whether it's, I don't know, a sorority meeting or just a gathering in women's homes. You know how women do when we get together. Everything okay? We eat, we talk, we drink, and so these women decided to be intentional about planning these gatherings to have some really good, honest discussions about sexual assault. And so they were safe spaces where people could disclose, but they were also opportunities to have educational information shared and dispel rape myths. And then black men started doing these kinds of small gatherings, and this went on for a year in St. Louis. And so I just wanted to share that example to say, you know, you don't have to have a PhD or be a social worker or whatever to participate in ending and changing the culture that causes, that in which rape is allowed to perpetuate and fester. So I do want to, you know, talk about some basics also quickly. What is sexual assault? During the women's movement in the 60s and 70s, and I do think this was a step forward, women were defining rape as a crime of power and control that has nothing to do with sex. After my book was published, I was having a conversation with a woman who had read it. She was the executive director of the Ohio Alliance to End Sexual Assault, African-American woman who helped me understand that rape is a little more complex than that. So my understanding of sexual assault continues to evolve as much reading and writing as I do about it. And so this quote really resonated with me and kind of helped me understand it better. This is from a professor at the University of Texas named Robert Jensen, who's done some really amazing work around gender justice and racism as well. He says, "The common phrase, rape is about power, not sex, misleads. Rape is about the fusion of sex and domination, about the eroticization of control. In this culture, rape is normal. In a culture where the dominant definition of sex is the taking of pleasure from women by men, rape is an expression of the sexual norms of the culture, not a violation of those norms." So, in my opinion, boys and men in our society often get messages, whether it's through the media, from their own family and friends, that what they want takes priority over what girls want or women want. They're socialized to believe that using force is sexy, that if she says no, she's playing hard to get, that if she says maybe, that means yes. Consent, people. Everybody demand, get consent when it's, time. So I think that there are people who rape and know that what they're doing is wrong, but I also honestly believe that there are men who are participating in this behavior and really don't think they're doing anything wrong. They're thinking, well, if she's here and it's in the middle of the night and we're naked, even if she's saying no, she couldn't mean no, because that's how they've been socialized. So sexual assault is a form of violence which involves the sexual body parts of the perpetrator, the victim, or both, and it can involve objects as well. Any unwanted sexual contact, whether or not the assailant uses physical strength, has a weapon, articulates a threat, any unwanted sexual contact is a sexual assault. In a recent year, actually only 11% of rapists that were documented used a weapon, and that's a lower percentage than for other violent crimes. So it's incredibly common to think of a rapist as someone who has a gun, who's a stranger, who's a hardened criminal. Yes, perpetrators do rape strangers, as in my case. But most people, the estimate that I have read most recently is about 2/3 of women who are raped are assaulted by someone they know, someone they think they have no reason not to trust. And in a study of campus rape, that figure is 90%. In that same study of campus rape, about half the women who experienced, quote, unwanted, completed penetration by force or threat of force, unquote, half of those women did not consider what happened to them rape. So there are a lot of people who don't have an accurate understanding of rape and are walking around suffering the consequences of sexual violence without even understanding they've been victimized. 80% of victims will experience post-traumatic stress disorder. We usually associate that with war combat veterans. So we're not just talking about bad sex. We're talking about a very serious trauma. And so no two people will react the same. People might try to medicate the pain away with drugs or alcohol. Some people develop eating disorders. Some people might have self-injury behaviors. For some people, maybe they just will develop depression. The list of potential responses to sexual assault goes on and on. So I just wanted to cover those basics, but also talk about what needs to go on and on and on in that self-care. So how do you heal? When you have a physical wound, you break your arm or you have a burn, you go to someone, a medical doctor, who's trained to treat that wound. If you have an emotional wound, I'm thinking, why not go to a person who's trained, who specializes in helping people heal from that specific kind of trauma. So I definitely am not saying you have to go to therapy. I understand that therapy is not for everyone, and I really believe that survivors have to decide what's best for them. But I will tell you that in my case, I can unequivocally say that therapy was the single most significant thing I did as part of my healing journey. I can't remember exactly how long I was in therapy, but I had weekly sessions for a significant period of time, and it was really important for me to choose a therapist I was comfortable with. I knew that I wanted a black woman, and I knew that I wanted her to be comfortable incorporating spirituality into our sessions, and I think that's really key. If you decide to go the route of therapy and you meet with someone and you're not comfortable with that person for whatever reason, don't feel bad. Don't sit there and suffer through it. Keep searching until you find the person that feels like a good fit for you. In addition to being a psychotherapist, my therapist was an ordained minister and a non-traditional ordained minister. So she also had me working with essential oils, for example, like lavender to help me relax, and other alternative healing tools. And so I do, in I Will Survive, talk about some of those things as well. But, you know, there are libraries, there's the internet. This is not going to be hard for you to find in terms of ways to practice self-care. Whether or not you choose therapy, I think that it's really, really important that you talk to someone that you can trust, someone who believes you, someone who supports you. And again, if you try to talk to someone and they're being dismissive or saying, oh, just get over it, or asking you, well, why were you there at that, or whatever, if they're not providing the kind of support that you need, move on to the next person until you find someone who can give you that support. Or maybe all you need is someone to listen and not say a word. Keep going until you find that person, because it's not good to keep this pain bottled up inside. I think it's really important to let it out. So along those lines, in my opinion, self-care is not optional. Even if you're not a survivor, this is really important, but definitely for survivors, it's imperative to be intentional about taking care of yourself. And no one knows better than you what will make you feel healthier or stronger or safer or whatever it is that you need to feel. And so I'll give you one easy little example of something that I did after I was raped. There was a gospel CD out by an artist named William Beckton. Again, this was the 90s. So I can't remember the name of the CD, but I remember side B, or no, it didn't have a side. It was this a cassette tape? So, but there was a song called Let the Healing Begin, and there were other songs that just felt so comforting to me. And so every night without fail for a long period of time, I would listen to that music and let it play as I went off to sleep. And I just felt like that was washing over me and feeding me and comforting me when I was in some of my deepest pain. So I highly recommend that you figure out what nourishes you and do that thing. For somebody, it might mean reading self-help books or meditating. This might sound silly, but laughing, watching comedies. For some, it might mean going to a church or a spiritual community. For others, that's the last place you want to go. Finding a type of exercise you enjoy is definitely a great thing. Can't go wrong with that. Whatever it is, whatever nourishes you and leaves you feeling uplifted, do that thing and commit to it like your life depends on it. So I want to show really quickly, this is less than 2 minutes. This is a minute and a half. This is a video that was created by an organization called Sisters of Color Ending Sexual Assault. And this is also about, this is a message to support survivors. So all I need to do is hit the play button. Okay.
There's a secret that many of us live with, never told a soul. The work It's never spoken out loud. When it's spoken, it's in hushed tones, never to be the